So I want to start by introducing myself so you can get to know me better. And then I'll have each of you just briefly introduce yourselves. And then we can kind of go over the logistics of the class, the syllabus, and then we'll jump right into our first lab today. Okay? So I wanted to start by telling you a little bit about me as a biologist and kind of how I got here. I grew up in Oklahoma, and when I graduated from high school, I decided to transfer to New Orleans, where I studied biology. And I wanted to be a pre-med student. My goal was to be a doctor. And I took all the classes, and I was getting ready for my pre-med exams, my med school exams, and I ended up taking an ecology class. And right around when that happened, I just fell in love with ecology. So I ended up switching to environmental science and ecology as my majors. And after I graduated from Loyola in New Orleans, I ended up working as a biologist at a few different parks. I'll show you some pictures from those. And then after kind of wandering around a little bit, I went and got my master's degree in soil and water science from the University of Florida. And what I studied there was looking at how wetlands can remove water pollution, which is a pretty awesome service from a biological function. And then I worked at NASA, and I have some photos from that, NASA Ames. That's how I ended up in California about 14 years ago. And while I was there, my supervisor asked me to work with some students doing some education programs, and I fell in love with it, and I ended up teaching. So I went and got my teaching credential, and I've been teaching ever since. So that's kind of a little bit of an overview. So I wanted to show you some pictures of some different biological studies that I've done. The first thing I did, this was in New Orleans. So if you heard about, hopefully you heard about Hurricane Katrina that happened many years ago, but Lake Pontchartrain overflowed during the hurricane, and it flooded New Orleans. And so this is the overview of that. And what I was studying is this weird species of algae that will actually tell you about the water quality in the lake just by whether it's there or not. So really cool way to study the overall health of the lake. Next, I went to Joshua Tree, California. So hopefully some of you have been there. It's a pretty awesome place. And at Joshua Tree, I was working on habitat restoration. So we helped improve the health of these Joshua trees. They're not true trees, but they are huge, and they had been severely degraded for a number of different reasons. And so we did some plant restoration there. What we did is we would grow plants in a nursery and put them out. So that was one of the things that we did. After that, I moved to New York. Both Joshua Tree and New York were internships, so I always like to encourage folks to do internships. And this was an internship working with endangered species of birds. And these birds are called piping plovers. And you can see that we put up these, what are called exclosures, excuse me. And this was to keep predators out. A lot of things hunt these, but the biggest problem was that cats, domesticated cats and wild feral cats were eating these birds, and also people were stepping on their nests. A lot of different things are threatening this endangered species of birds. If any of you are into birds, we have a local species called the snowy plover that has the exact same issues, and they use the exact same methods to help improve their numbers. I also moved back to Oklahoma and Kansas, and here I studied grassland bird species that actually nest in the grass. And the grass is super tall, so we were literally looking for needles in a haystack to find these different bird nests. And what we learned here is that the way that the land is managed, whether it's mowed or burned or left to do whatever, changes what type of bird species live there. And here are some pictures of some of the different bird nests that we found. This is actually a baby hawk right here. This is called a nighthawk, and it nests directly on the ground. You can actually see the soil right there. This is called a lark sparrow, and these are called scissor-tailed flycatchers, which again, if you know your bird species, is like our black phoebe that we have here in California. And this is when it's eggs and when it's babies. After, as I said, I also went out to University of Florida to study wetlands, and this is me actually taking a soil sample in the wetlands. And this was kind of a dangerous job because there were alligators out there, and I was out there by myself, so it was a little bit daunting task to be out in the swamps taking water samples in such a strange habitat. And this is the wetland that I was talking about that was doing most of the water pollution removal. So as the polluted water flowed through here, it actually removed, the wetland actually converted or removed a lot of those pollutants from the water. And these are a couple of the soil samples just so you can see how different they can be. Another biological study that I did was up in Alaska. This is my niece in the picture. She's 15 now. And what I was studying in Alaska is related to climate change. So in Alaska, they have what's called permafrost, and it's a permanently frozen soil, hence permafrost. And the permanently frozen soil, due to global warming, is actually thawing. And scientists have been worried for a long time that as the soil thaws, it will release carbon to the atmosphere. And so what we were doing, you can kind of see there's a little box back here. This box is covered in sensors and it's automated to open and close. And what we were doing is trying to see, is there carbon gases coming out of the soil as it thaws? And we did find that indeed that's happening. So this area that's sensitive to climate change is also becoming a source of more greenhouse gases. And we'll talk more about that when we have our climate change lab. Like I said, the way that I came to California was through NASA Ames. And we did a lot of different interesting studies there. One of them, you can see in the background, this strange forms of life. This is different types of algae, which is a type of a water plant, aquatic plant. And it turns out if you take algae and you stress it, it will make oil, which you can extract to make biofuel, so fuel from life, because we are looking at sustainable ways to power our future. So that's one thing that I did there. The other thing I did there is we studied something called an extremophile. Extreme, it's an organism that loves extreme environments. So super salty, super acidic, super high UV radiation. And the reason that we study these is that, one, it tells us about early Earth. So evolution is one of our labs that we'll do. And it also tells us about what we might find on other planets if we did find life. Because we aren't really looking for little green men, we're looking for, or little green women or anything like that. We're looking for tiny microscopic life. So that's what we were studying. So like I said, I went and got my teaching credential at San Jose State, and I teach here at West Valley College. I teach biology and environmental biology and horticulture. And I also teach at De Anza College, where I teach environmental science and environmental studies. So why do I love biology? I love biology because it's the study of life. I love it because it's super diverse. If you look at this picture, this is taken in Alaska of the ground, and you can see that there's many different species all living there together. This is on the what's called tundra. It's tiny little plants that are no taller than 2 or 3 inches tall. Life also tells us about the history of life on Earth. So this is a fossil found in Forest of the Nicene Marks around here. Biology is also food. One of the labs that we'll do is a nutrition lab. These are wild blueberries, and this is a cherry tree. And so knowing about biology is also learning about growing food, knowing about nutrition and health, and that's one of our labs that we'll do. Biology is also funny to me sometimes. This was I wish I had the video of this, because this lizard was, I'm sure you've seen the lizards doing the push-ups before, and this one was doing it on the side of the rock. Biology is cute. As you can see, I've already given you a tour of my animals, and this is my cat Nala, who's 16. So that's a little bit about me. I want to stop this and we'll come back to this. And I want to take a minute to have you all briefly introduce yourselves. So here are some of the different, let's have you introduce yourself. You can do first name only and your preferred, you can just say your preferred name. And let's have you share either your major or studies that you're interested in, or if this is your first or second or third or whatever year you've been at West Valley, or you could tell us where you're holed up doing your Zoom studies. So you can either say your major or a subject that you're interested in, or how long you've been at West Valley, because I like to know who the first year students are. And also if you've been here for a while, that means that you can be a source of support for other students, or you could share where you are Zooming in from. So I think I'll just call on folks so it's not totally random. I hope you all are okay with that. So let's have John go first.
There we go. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
So I'm John, and right now I'm actually calling in from my parents' house because I had to leave my apartment because of COVID. That was not fun.
What city are you in?
I'm in San Jose, so the outside right now for me might be a bit of a problem because of the AQI.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good point. Okay, let's have Marcos go.
Hello. I actually go to Mission College, not West Valley. I don't know if that's okay, but I'm majoring in transfer for business administration, and I'm hoping to study finance in particular.
Awesome. Yeah, West Valley and Mission, a lot of students go back and forth. So welcome.
And I'm calling in from like Santa Clara, so like
awesome.
I'm not near the fires, so I'm good.
Let's have Alexis go.
Hey, sorry. I'm Alexis. I'm a freshman here, and my major is actually bio, so that's cool. Yeah, I'm interested in like all life sciences. I just think that they're all really interesting, and I'd like to study them more. And I'm in San Jose, so in the smoky areas, and it sucks.
So it's pretty smoky over there today. I'm in Santa Cruz. We're doing okay today.
It's really cloudy. I haven't been outside yet this morning, but I'm sure it's pretty bad.
Okay, I'll look up the air quality.
The AQI for us right now is in the moderate, but it's projected to get worse as the day progresses.
Great.
Okay, thanks for telling me that. I will adjust. All right, let's have Anil.
Oh, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah. Right now I am calling from my house in Campbell. Yeah. And I'm a third-year student. I am studying to become an LVN.
Awesome. And did I say your name right? Anil?
Yeah, Annual.
Annual. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Annual.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's have Ariella go.
I'm Ariella. I'm on my second year, and right now I'm in Morgan Hill.
Okay, how's the air there?
It's kind of cloudy. The fires were pretty close because they were evacuating people on the mountains, but it's not as smoky like the smell right now.
Okay, thank you. Let's have Brian go.
Hey, my name is Brian. It's my first year here. It's actually my first semester here, and I am a computer science major.
Awesome. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
All right, let's have Elijah go.
Hey, what's good? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, what's good? My name's Elijah. I go by the name Chow, like from The Hangover, and I'm like zooming from my room.
And where is your room located?
You know where Calm Hill is, like in San Jose?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome. Let's have Dana go.
My name's Dana. I'm calling from Willow Glen. I don't know what the air quality looks like, but the weather app on my phone just says smoke. Yeah. Am I missing anything?
Oh, I don't think so. It's kind of up to you what you want to talk about. It's just this is us starting to know names with faces.
I am gonna major in public health, maybe transfer to San Jose State. And I really like biology, so it works out.
Yes, it does. Thanks, Dana. Dylan.
Hi, I'm Dylan. I'm a second year student at West Valley, and I'm calling from San Jose.
Great. Welcome, Dylan. Thanks.
All right, thanks.
Ethan.
Hi. Oh, sorry.
No
There's
worries.
a lot of background noise. I'm a high school student actually still. I'm dual enrollment. Last year I was at Mission, but this year I'm at both. And I'm calling in from Santa Clara. And I'm probably looking at a psychology major.
Awesome. Thanks, Ethan. How about Maddie?
Hi, I'm Maddie. I'm also a psychology major, and I'm calling in from San Jose, and this is my third year at West Valley.
Awesome. Thank you, Maddie. Those of you that are first years, you might take note of who the folks are that have been here a little bit, because they might be able to help you out with questions that you might have with navigating West Valley. Let's have Paul go.
Hey, I'm Paul. This is my second year at West Valley. Major is political science, and then I'm calling in from Campbell.
Awesome. Welcome, Paul. You're not on out in outer space?
No, yeah, I wish. It would be fun to be in space.
Yep. Thank you. Welcome. Trevor.
Hi, I'm Trevor. I'm a second year student here at West Valley. I'm studying music right now. It's not like final or anything, but I'm enjoying it. And was there anything else? Oh yeah, I'm calling from San Jose, and right now the air quality's it's pretty low. It's recently been in like the 150s, but now it's like 60, so that's pretty good.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. All right, Elizabeth.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth, and I'm calling from Colorado. And I'm majoring in computer information systems, but I'm kind of interested in pre-vet now, so just trying to explore a few avenues.
Awesome. And there's some really cool linkages between computer science and biology as well.
Yeah.
So just to know that there's other ways to link those two.
Mm-hmm.
I think we got it. Did I miss anybody? Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for introducing yourselves. I'm going to go over some of the class details and we'll look at the syllabus. And then I'm actually going to put you in breakout rooms just so you can get to know each other a little better, because we will be doing lab groups over the course of the semester so that you can work on your labs together. And also, I think we all are a little bit starved for seeing I know I went out. Where did I go last? Oh, I went over to West Valley to pick up some materials for teaching. And I was sitting in Los Gatos and I was just like enamored with looking at other humans, because I don't see people very often anymore. I was like, look, there's a person. Look, there's a person. And so I think it's nice to have some human contact here. So I'd like us to get to know each other a little better, since we're all kind of locked up in I'm sure we all have our folks that we see, but I know that I see a lot less people than I used to. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if you have a question as we go along, feel free to put it in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourselves. We have a small class, so don't feel like you need to. You can totally unmute yourself and just talk, or you can put something in the chat and I can answer questions as we go. So these are the goals that that I have for us this semester. So one of my major goals always is to show that biology is relevant to your life. Biology literally means the study of life, and it's one of those things that if you have a basic study of biology, you're gonna be able to use it when you read articles in the news, and to knowing some basic biology is really helpful for learning about COVID. It's really helpful for learning about climate change. It's really helpful for learning about your health. And if you have some basic knowledge and also know how to check the accuracy of that knowledge, those are really good skills. And I'll tell stories of how that's come up in my own life as I go along. One I can tell you just briefly is about my grandmother, who bought a bed and immediately started getting really sick. And I asked her, I talked to her on the phone and I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Oh, I've been so nauseous and dizzy. I don't know what's going on." And I asked her, "What's new? What's different? What's the changed variable?" And for her, it was buying a new bed. And I said, "Well, tell me about this bed." And she had bought a bed that had flame retardants, which is a chemical that a lot of beds and pillows are soaked in to keep them from lighting on fire. And she was allergic to it. And so she was actually getting sick from her bed. And she tried to take it back and they wouldn't let her, but I had sent her the reactions, the chemical reactions that are involved in that bed. And so by providing information, she was able to get taken care of. So there's lots of examples like that where if you have a little bit of knowledge, it's kind of a way to advocate for yourself and your loved ones. I also want to provide a learning experience that is accessible to everyone, and that's one of my major goals and priorities, is to make sure that everybody has access to learning in this environment. I also want to provide the background for you to be successful and to get you excited about biology. And all careers have skill sets, and we can develop those even in this class. So that's another thing that it doesn't matter what your career goals are, if you want to be a biologist or not, there's still skills that we can develop together that will help you along the way. So those are my goals for this class. So I want to go over to the syllabus. So this is posted on Canvas, and I'm actually going to go through Canvas itself. I don't think I'm not sharing right now. Good. Okay, so here is our course homepage. So this has the link to the syllabus. So you can actually start here every week for getting to our Zoom classes. Here's a link for our Zoom classes right here with the password. Here is how to get your lab manual and your lab kit, which we'll talk about shortly. And you can access each week directly here, or you can go through modules. So let's start with our syllabus. So here is our syllabus for you to look over. I have also posted the Zoom link here. And I have office hours every Monday for 2 hours, and these are student office hours. These are not for me to sit and work. This is for you all to come and talk to me. And it doesn't have to be about our class. It can be anything relevant to biology or science. If you want to come talk about careers, if you have some random question about a plant, come on by. I'm just sitting there by myself, waiting for students to come and hang out. So feel free to come on Mondays. And if you have a class or you can't come during that time, just message me and I can message me with times that work for you. And I'll send you a Zoom link for us to have a separate meeting. Okay. So please feel free to do that. So I have some introduction here. It's really talking about how the lab is meant to reinforce your lecture. It's not always perfectly timed together, but it is meant to help you connect some of the more complex concepts in lecture to lab by actually interacting with them in some way. So here's the things you will need. You will need a copy of the lab manual. So these are now, they were delayed because we get them printed in Scotts Valley and folks were evacuated, including businesses. And so there was a delay, but they are now available. And we're selling them for way less than normal. We're selling them at cost. So has anyone bought the lab manual yet?
Yeah, I bought it on a West Valley bookstore. I don't know if that's where you're supposed to buy it, but
That's perfect,
I did
Marcos.
get it. I'm just waiting for delivery.
Okay, great. Marcos, how much was it?
it was 15 something cents.
Okay, great.
Yeah, is that the good price or?
That's the good price.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. So you'll need your lab manual and you can have it delivered. So that's an option. And then you'll also need your lab kit. So I sent a message about that. It sounds like most of you are able to pick that up. And Elizabeth, you've talked to me about having it mailed to you. So you'll be getting that in the mail. So I sent, go ahead.
Will they have our names, or do we just have to go to the campus and go pick it up?
Right. You don't need, the only thing you need to remember is my name and the color of our lab kit. So their color, so there's a map and everything in the instructions for the lab kit, and I can show you where that is. But the only thing you need to know is Frisbee and black is our color. So when you go pick it up, it's going to be a paper sack that looks just like this with a black piece of tape at the top. And you don't need to do anything. You just pick it up. There might be someone out there, but they're outside. And so you can just grab it and go.
Good man.
Okay.
Good man.
Thank you. Okay, so that is the lab manual and the lab kit. The lab kit's really fun. If any of you have picked it up yet, it has materials so that for, I think, half of the weeks, you'll actually have something that you're doing at home based on what's in the lab kit. And then I also have designed things so that you're always kind of doing something to actually be doing hands-on activities at home. So I do ask that you read the current lab, the lab that we're working on before class. Obviously that doesn't apply to today, but it is going to help things move more smoothly. And this doesn't mean you need to get out a highlighter and get really detailed, but just kind of skim it so you have an idea of what we're doing, especially because some of the labs are more complicated than others. And some of the labs we're going to completely do something different, and I'll always let you know that the week before, okay? There is a pre-lab. So when you get your lab manual, it's going to have the lab schedule, and it's going to have all the I think the pre-labs are actually now throughout, but there's a pre-lab right before the lab itself, and it's meant to help you get oriented with the lab. And so you'll do that before class, okay? And so the first pre-lab will be for next week. So if you're not able to get the lab manual before next week, message me and I'll send you the lab and pre-lab for next week, okay? Okay, so, and we'll also have weekly quizzes. So the weekly quiz will be at the beginning of class. So what will happen, our class starts at 10:55, right? So I'm going to post the quiz right at 10:55, and you'll have 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes to take the quiz, and then we'll meet here at 11:20, okay? So it'll give you like a 5-minute break. So we'll actually meet via Zoom at 11:20. I'll be here from 10:55 on in case you finish early and you want to come ask questions. But the lab will be at the very beginning of class, okay? So the first thing you'll do is you'll go to Canvas, take the quiz, and then you'll come to our Zoom meeting. Okay. A word about the quizzes. If you leave the Canvas quiz during the quiz, it logs that on Canvas. Okay. If you try to go search it on another web page, it logs that on Canvas. If you leave to go to another document, it logs that on Canvas. Okay. So don't do that. It's very hard to minimize cheating in this atmosphere, and I am not saying any of you would do that, but it has happened a lot in Zoom classes. And so I will put this in the instructions for the quiz just so it's really clear. But once you open the quiz and you start the quiz, stay in the quiz until you're done. Otherwise, if you leave Canvas, I'll reduce your points. Okay. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Annual.
For the lab, how would we turn them in? That was a question. How would we turn in the lab after we're completed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of the time you'll either take pictures with your phone and you can upload that to Canvas. That's one way. If you have a scanner, you could scan it and upload it to Canvas. But most folks, if you're not able, check in with me on this, but you'll just take a picture of each page of your lab and you'll upload that to Canvas. Okay. And we won't need to do that for next week. For this week, everything will be on Canvas. For next week, I'll talk more about some programs that allow you to upload it all as one thing instead of having to upload one picture at a time. And I actually think you can upload multiple files at once, but there are a few programs that allow you to put it all together with your phone. It's an app. So that's how you would do it. In some cases, you'll do your paper lab and I'll have you just input a few of the questions directly into Canvas. Does that answer your question, Annual? Good? Did someone else have a question? I heard someone else's. No? Okay, let's see what else. So like I said, you will be working in groups. So that's what this is here. So here's kind of some of our student learning outcomes that come from the college. Here's the course guidelines. So please come to Zoom class on time. So this is really having that quiz at the beginning. That's what I do if we're at West Valley. We have the quiz at the beginning. So we'll do that here as well. If you feel comfortable, please turn your cameras on because again, that just helps make this more of a community. Let me know if you have issues with that. And again, if you have any issues with Canvas or Zoom, if you're a little bit new to these, stick around after class and I can help you get oriented, or you can come talk to me during office hours. Okay. We do, our school policy is that you're expected to attend classes. However, you can miss up to 3. This will affect your grade. It's kind of amazing how it's actually really hard to pass if you miss more than 3 labs. And missing labs, really missing 1 lab, you would be okay. But as you get into missing 2 or 3 labs, it often drops you a letter grade because you missed the quiz, you missed the lab, and you missed the pre-lab. So it just kind of has a snowball effect. I understand that things happen. So another option is I teach another lab right after this at 2:10. And if you have something come up, you can message me and ask if you can come to that class for that day. Okay. So there are some options. And if you have, I know stuff happens. I know that we have people, like there's a lot of mental health issues with sheltering in place. We have family issues with sheltering in place. So just keep me posted and we'll see what we can do. Okay. I have some important dates here: last day to drop, last day to withdraw, and the final exam. So our final exam is December 14th. It's on a Monday. These are Mondays, so I only have these here because I just won't have office hours on those days. It doesn't affect our class. Okay. So here's the grading. Each lab is worth 10 points. This includes 7 points for the lab report and 3 points for the pre-lab. So the labs themselves, if you're not a good quiz taker, are really great at buffering, kind of making sure that you're not being graded fully on quizzes. The pre-labs, as I said, are turned in before the class. It can be turned in any time before the class. It's just due before our class starts, okay? The labs are due the night before. So for instance, this week we have a lab. It will not be due until next Tuesday at midnight. So next week's lab that we do on Wednesday will not be due until the following Tuesday at midnight. We will do most of the lab together, but there's questions throughout the lab that you might want to go back and answer. But you shouldn't have to do that much outside of our lab. And in fact, most of you will finish the lab in class, and you could turn it in right then if you'd like. I see people have said things in the chat. Let me check that. Da-da-da-da-da. So Alexis asked, can we get the lab manual at the same place as the lab kit? Marcos, did you pick it up at the bookstore, or did you order it?
I ordered it online.
And they mailed it to you?
Yeah.
Has anyone gone directly to the bookstore? I actually don't know if the bookstore is.
I have the link here. I'll just
I think the bookstore's closed because of the virus. Because I
Okay.
tried checking and it just.
Okay. So Marcos put the lab manual link in the chat for those of you that don't have your lab manual yet. So it sounds like they're mailing all of the lab manuals.
I have a
I
quick.
don't know if it's gonna work for other people for the link, but
Okay, well, if you go to West Valley Bookstore and put in our Biotin lab manual, I'll see if I can pull up another link too that might be, well, let me see if it comes up for me if I click on it.
So do the quizzes open at 11:20, and then we have like 20 minutes, and then afterwards go to the Zoom meetings?
No, the quiz opens at 10:55.
Okay.
And then we meet back at our Zoom meeting at 11:20.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So the quiz will be the first thing you do, so you don't need to come to class first.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Ethan says the link to the Zoom class didn't work for me. I'll check that. And then that's all our
you have to actually look up directly. Not yeah, it's the only way.
Marcus, what did you say?
You have to look it up directly through the find your textbook, like the link on the Canvas where it shows the course materials that you need. It won't work, so you have to search it up directly.
Okay.
on the website.
So yeah, if you put, let me put this in the chat. If you put in the bookstore biology 10 lab manual, then that will come up. That's what it's listed under for $15. Okay, thanks everybody. Where else are we? So, so under quizzes. So quizzes are worth 15 points. I'm going to post a study guide for each quiz just so you know what's on it, because I don't want you to have to feel like you have to memorize every word that's in the lab. I want to pull the big concepts out. My quizzes are straightforward. They're multiple choice, true, false, and short answer. I'm not trying to trick you. I don't use, weird language to try and, make it tricky. So it's very straightforward. There aren't makeups, but again, check in with me if something happens and we'll see what we can do. I do drop the lowest quiz grade, so if you don't do well on one, then you'll be fine. Also, there will be extra credit opportunities. So I'll be posting an extra credit module where I'll list a few extra credit opportunities. And for different labs, like the nutrition lab has an opportunity to get 10 points extra credit by cooking a meal for your family and analyzing the nutrition of that meal, or a dish. You don't have to do a whole meal. Cooking a dish for your family or friends or whoever you live with, or yourself. So there's a few different extra credit opportunities along the way. Okay. So the quiz will be on Canvas. So you will just go to the module next week, and it will be right under week 1. And you'll click on it and you'll start the quiz again at 10:55. Okay. And I might even put it up for 10:50 just if you want to get there, take it, and then maybe take a little break before class starts. So there's our grading scale. I have information here about academic dishonesty. Here are a bunch, I don't know if you all know, those of you especially that are new, but we have a lot of services at West Valley for folks, especially during COVID. So there's resources for students with disabilities. There's a lot of support services, tutoring, financial aid, food that are available. There's counseling I've had a lot of students talk about mental health issues, and we do have counseling services at West Valley that are free. So even though West Valley is closed, we have services online, and I have links to that in the syllabus or on Canvas. I'll show you. TRIO is an awesome program. This provides a lot of different resources for students, and it's actually kind of a great place to sort of start, and then they'll help you find where you need to go. But these are some of the different services that they provide for folks if you're interested. And then this is if you experience discrimination or sexual harassment on campus from another student, even if this includes domestic violence or from a professor in one of your classes, this is how you report that. Okay, so that's here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and go to our modules and then see if you all have any other questions. So I wanted to show you there's another place here. This has our student resources, which I will add to regularly, but this has the weekly lab schedule, so what topics we're doing each week. Again, student services, mental health resources, and disability and educational support. So this is all here as direct links for you all. So are there any questions about the syllabus or the quizzes or the labs or the pre-labs, due dates?
Wait, actually, I have a question.
Sure.
That we start at 10:55, so we have like 30 minutes to do the quiz or something like that?
You'll start at 10:55 and you'll have 20 minutes for the quiz.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, and then I'm giving you a little break. So it'll be a 20-minute quiz and you'll have about 5 minutes before class starts to grab a coffee or a banana or whatever
Okay.
you might want
And
to
the
do.
quiz is just on like the lab we did or something like that?
Correct. So if you look here, excuse me, under week 1, I'm going to have right here a study guide, and next week the quiz will be right here, all under week 1, because that's the week 1 quiz. So the study guide I will post today in case you are just curious what's going to be on the quiz next week. We're not covering a whole lot of different concepts today, but we'll still have a quiz. And I reduced the points for the quiz next week because we have 2 different activities here for 7 points each. So next week's quiz will be worth 8 points. And it'll be based on some of the concepts we're going to talk about today. Any other questions?
You're gonna record the Zooms for each week or something, or?
I'm not planning to, mostly because a lot of what we're doing together is in breakout rooms. So what I will do is I'm going to get, so the way that, I have this in, let's go back to this PowerPoint. Okay. Okay, so this is our weekly lab schedule. Like I said, labs will be due at midnight the week before, or the night before our next class. Lab quizzes are at the beginning, and here's what we're going to do during our Zoom meetings. I'm going to start the class with, we might debrief the previous lab. I will have looked over some of your labs, and if there's kind of topics that some of you are having some confusion about, I'll address those. And then I will introduce the topic of the day with some slides. And those slides I will post to Canvas. So instead of recording, because this is a 3-hour class, instead of recording, the whole thing, what I'll do is I'll post the presentation that I'm going over, okay? And then, so I'm going to introduce labs. It'll take 15 to 30 minutes and give you instructions on how to do that. And then you'll work with your group for as long as you need to work together. And I'll pop into those different groups. So I'll put you into breakout rooms with other students and you'll work on the labs. And I'll go from group to group, just like I would in our class, and check in on folks. So I'm not recording them mostly because very little of the class is us together. I do an intro and then we're working in lab groups. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the pre-lab the quiz, or is there separate pre-lab?
The pre-lab is in the lab manual, and it's just, let's see, I can pull one up to show you what they look like. Go away. Hold on. So, let's see. Do I have the pre-labs? Maybe it's at the end. So this is normally the lab that we would do the first. Oh, this isn't going to have a pre-lab because it, no. This isn't going to have the pre-lab because it is the first week. So I'm going to go back. Let's look at this one. See if it has the pre-lab. So this is our week 5 photosynthesis. I don't know where the pre-labs are in this version. So when you get the lab manual, the pre-labs are a separate component and they're at the beginning of each lab. And it's a sort of summary of the lab that you go through and you answer questions related to that. Oh, I know where I can show you. West Valley College also has the pre-labs online. College biology pre-lab. Just so you can see what they look like. This is our lab schedule. These are the labs. Here's the pre-labs. So for next week, this is the pre-lab. So this is what you would complete before you come to class. And this is based on the lab itself. So as you read over the lab that we're doing next week, you answer these questions. It's always only one page. I don't know why that page is there, but it's always one page. And it's just briefly going through and kind of reviewing some of the vocabulary so that when we come together, you've seen it once. Okay?
Okay.
Good question. Okay. So let's get started with, oh, I know what I want to do next. So I'd like us to get to know each other a little bit. So I'm going to put you in breakout rooms just to get to know a few folks. And then I'll introduce today's lab. And so I want to start out with these 3 questions. So I'm going to put you into breakout rooms, and you can talk about any or all of these within your breakout room. And the reason I ask, how do you feel about biology science, is I've had a lot of students in the past that have said, oh, I had a bad experience with science, or I love science, or science is gross or scary or hard or boring. And so you can be totally honest in your group with how do you feel about biology and or science? And then what are some ways biology may affect you during your life? And how might biology, this is kind of the same question, how might biology be important in your life? So any of those questions that your group wants to talk about, let's say talk about 2 of them, since 2 and 3 are basically the same question. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, or I'll put this in the chat. So if you want to do that, then you'll have it. So introduce yourselves, and where's my chat? There we go. And briefly talk about these questions related to biology. So if you want to take a screenshot of those questions, or if one person in your group can, I think I can also broadcast them to the group. So I'll do that as well. So I'll give you about 5 minutes to talk with your group. So just make sure everyone has a chance to share, and then we will come back and I'll have a couple groups report out what their group talked about. So pick someone in your group that's willing to share out what your group talked about. Okay? All right, so I'm sending you to breakout room.
That's
but
the
you know
first
what?
thing I
the
come back.
plankton, the drawing of the plankton, that's what plankton really looks like.
That's the
in
first
real
thing
life.
I come back to hear is SpongeBob's a really educational show. I'm just like, what is going on?
It is not an educational
He
show.
said I
whatsoever.
wouldn't say that.
Yeah. That's all. I didn't hear the I wouldn't. I just heard SpongeBob is an educational show. I'm just like,
What is
okay.
happening?
You know what I don't get though is that Squidward is a cashier and SpongeBob is a fry cook, and technically in real life a fry cook earns more than a cashier, but yet Squidward lives in a better house or a better.
I don't know. If you saw SpongeBob's pineapple, it's got like that. It got the second story. It's got the basement.
There's like a
hidden
freaking
library.
library in there.
Yeah, the library, everything, man. I don't know. I think he's doing pretty well.
It's the house that's infinite.
SpongeBob be thriving, my man.
Yeah.
I like the passion that you all have here, and it's related to biology. It's actually related.
Somehow.
It is. I'm telling you.
I find it sad though that Plague didn't
Wait,
get any
Stephen
customers.
Hillenburg or Mr. Lawrence?
So I'd love to hear. Oh, Dana, I can tell you really feel like you need to say this.
Well, I mean, if there's a restaurant that sold human flesh, would you go eat there? No.
Okay. No, of course not.
That's true.
And the prices that Mr. Krabs offers at Krusty Krab, I don't think I would want to eat there.
I mean, depends how heavy the munchies are. You feel me?
I'm gonna have us move on now.
Probably should.
But now I know how to get things rolling is to bring this up. So let's have a couple groups share what you all talked about with the how, and you can just be vague. If you're reporting for your group, you don't need to say so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that. You can just kind of summarize what you all talked about. So does anyone feel like reporting for their group?
I can go. Or if anyone else wants to.
Well, for my group, I think it was group 3. Well, Dylan thinks biology's cool. Brian thinks that it's there, it's everywhere. It's a part of life. And I didn't catch John at the last second, but you can go ask him.
Oh wait, my mic's not. Okay. Is the mic? No.
We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, it was one more enjoyed classes back in high school, rather than say chemistry, which just made my brain hurt because it's a lot of math.
Yeah.
Math is the bane of my existence.
Chemistry is a different beast, that's for sure. I always say that biology brains and chemistry brains are a little bit.
Well, the funny part is I understand physics, but I don't understand chemistry.
Yeah, they're different ways of thinking for sure.
Yeah. And also chemistry is like also a good part of biology too. So it's
Definitely. If you study biology, those of you that are, I think it's Alexis is one of our biology students. She will be taking a lot of chemistry in her future. So that's something a lot of biology majors end up doing. Let's hear from another group.
For us, like we were saying how it's the coolest science and like the easiest to understand, and it was all around us, and like it's cool to see how different plants, animals, and us ourselves live. That's what Alexis was saying and Maddie was saying, Ethan. And then we also kind of made the point of how we all don't really love science that much because of the difficulty, but biology is kind of like, it's like the easier one and it's easier to understand and do, so that makes it more enjoyable in a way. And you know, like in the ways that it could help us like in the real world is like maybe like if we were to come across some kind of situation in our lives that, you know, we didn't really understand or people around us didn't understand, but we had certain biological knowledge, may be able to better explain what's happening or know what to do in that situation.
Yeah.
And like as of current events, we didn't think like not a lot has, or we haven't thought like bio has like affected our lives too much, but definitely in this time during like the coronavirus, it gives us like a better understanding of like, you know, how certain diseases are passed on and like all that stuff, and that's biology in itself. So right.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that would be really interesting to talk about is the effect of particulate matter. You know, we have poor air quality and the effect on the lungs is another way that biology is currently very relevant to our lives, because the more particulates, tiny pieces of basically burnt materials, the more you inhale, it actually can affect your bloodstream, your lungs, and even lead to heart issues. So we can talk about that more as far as relevance, but it's definitely an interesting time to be alive with regard to biology and climate change. And so it's good to have some understanding of that. What about another group?
I think our group, which was Trevor, Ariella, right? And then Elizabeth, we talked about the environmental aspects of biology, because biology kind of sets the foundation for all these branches. And I think we're curious to see what biology will say about environmental science in a way. Yeah, but I guess we also said that we have our weaknesses, and that's why I guess we took biology instead of like chemistry or whatever other classes that are difficult.
Well, and I would argue that sometimes people, I know for me, when I took chemistry, the thing that made me cranky is that my instructor wasn't making it relevant to my life. So I felt like I was just memorizing things to memorize them, versus when it's relevant, directly relevant to your life, it makes it easier. And that's really, I just think, because it works better on our brain if it actually feels like it connects to something, right? So I wouldn't say that you are being, taking the easy route. I think it's just maybe the most relevant to your life route,
Yeah, and I think like making connections in real life is just a sneaky way of studying.
Yeah, I mean, that's how the brain works. So brain science actually tells us if you want to remember something, you connect it to something you already know.
Yeah.
Yeah. One more group. We'll have one more group share. I think we've had 3.
Our group basically said the same thing. I think what we all agreed on is that bio is interesting subject and you see it all around us, but then the inside concepts of it is a little harder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I know for me personally, like I knew like a lot of outside stuff, like the basic stuff, and then going inside like the real actual concept of bio is hard.
Yeah, like, do you mean like DNA or cell biology?
DNA, cell bio, those type of stuff. Like,
yes, it does get quite complex. And the way that this lab and the lecture are structured is we kind of go from small to big. So many students find the first 5 or 6 weeks a little bit more challenging, and then the end of the class a lot easier. And it's really, you're learning the same amount of material, but you're learning it like the end of the class is all about ecology and things like that, which are really zoomed way out things. And we start the semester zooming way in. So osmosis, how do materials move, and then looking at DNA and looking at photosynthesis and things like that. So it's true that those things are really small. So if you find that the zooming in is really hard, just know that it's going to get bigger and bigger picture as we move along. Okay, thanks everybody. I'm happy to hear everybody's so stoked about biology. That's exciting, and we'll try to keep that up over the course of the semester. So what I want to do is poll everybody, because what I had planned for today is 2 different things. The first part is a biodiversity study. So you would take 10 minutes and either go outside or look out a window, or if you have a family member or friend who happens to have collected a lot of plants and animals, you could actually do your biodiversity study inside. But you could actually do it from a window. So I wanted to poll people and see, that's the first part of the study. Biodiversity is how many species there are in an area. So you would take 10 minutes and go see how many species you could count in 10 minutes. So, and I'll give detailed instructions about that, but I wanted to poll you all based on the air quality to ask you how comfortable you feel about going outside today. This is anonymous. So I'm gonna launch this and you can vote. Okay, so we've got everybody voted. We have 13 yeses and 2 nos. I'll share that so you can see. And so what I will do is we'll go ahead and do the study. And for the 2 of you that aren't comfortable, I'll invite you to do it from a window. And if there's no life from your window, you can do it later. So while other folks are doing the biodiversity survey, you can just hang out and you can do it later. I looked up San Jose. There's a great app. I'll put it in the chat called Air Visual. And it actually gives you a forecast for air quality. So it doesn't just give you the current air quality, it gives you what it's going to be. And I looked for San Jose this afternoon. It's going to clear up and most of tomorrow is going to be clear. So we'll go ahead and do this. And again, the 2 folks that aren't comfortable, feel free to just complete this part later. So let me go into what we are doing today. So I want to introduce first the concept of biodiversity, and then I'll give you instructions on what we're doing. So biodiversity is the variety of life on Earth. So if you've watched the Planet Earth videos or the Blue Planet or any of those fun ones, there's a really great new Netflix series called Night on Earth that's super awesome because they've learned how to take videos at night of different wildlife, and it's just crazy. And so biodiversity is the variety of life. And why does biodiversity matter? Biodiversity is actually what keeps our planet stable. So biodiversity, it maintains our clean air and clean water. So plants, trees, wetlands, things like this actually clean our air and clean our water. It's involved in food production. How is life or biodiversity related to food? What does that have to do with anything? Does anyone have any ideas what the connection is there?
Like certain animals in different ecosystems need different like nutrients to stay alive, and it's all dependent on the biodiversity.
Yes, so the whole food chain is related to biodiversity. So the things that we eat are dependent on entire food chains. Absolutely. What's another way that life is responsible for our food? Did anyone see a bee movie? No? So a bee movie is all about what happens when the bees go away. And so the other thing is related to food production is that pollinators, bees, bugs, flies, birds, are responsible for actually producing a lot of our food. So if you like to eat plums or nectarines or peaches or almonds or basically any type of fruit, those are all produced by pollinators. And if things don't pollinate plants, the plants don't make fruit. So what happens is bees take the pollen from one flower to another, they fertilize the flower, and the flower makes a plant. There's places in the world where the pollinator numbers are so low that people have to go out and hand pollinate. They use a brush and they touch the pollen from one flower to the female part of another flower and hand pollinate. That's expensive. That's a free service that nature does that people are having to do instead with the declining numbers of pollinators. Biodiversity is also responsible for recycling nutrients, whether it's a mushroom decomposing a log or a bacteria breaking down another kind of waste. A lot of our medicine comes from biodiversity. So really every medicine on earth started as something found in nature and then was synthesized in the lab. So a good example is aspirin. Aspirin, the original chemical for aspirin comes from the willow tree. The willow tree makes salicylic acid. And so that's what used to be used as a painkiller. It tastes terrible to chew on a willow tree, but it does kill pain. And so that was synthesized or made in a lab and used as a chemical form of painkiller. So that's really where we get the information for our different types of medicine. So where are some places in the world that have a lot of different types of species or high biodiversity?
Africa?
Africa, yeah, absolutely. Like the Sahara, yeah. What else?
South America?
Did you say South America?
Yeah, like jungles and stuff.
Yeah, the rainforests have extremely high biodiversity, absolutely. Where
Australia.
else? Pardon me?
Australia.
Australia, absolutely, absolutely. Believe it or not, California is also called a biodiversity hotspot. So we have a special place here as well with high biodiversity because we have lots of different types of habitats. We have desert, we have the coast, we have the mountains, we have the valleys. So we actually live in a place with really high biodiversity too. So what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to take us over to what I've put on Canvas, and then you all can, we'll take a break and have everybody launch out on their own. So here's what we're doing today. And this will be in class. The second part you can do on your own time. So to learn about we're doing this to learn about the variety of life and also to start developing our skills of observation. So one of the main skills for biology is learning to look at things closely, to notice differences, to make comparisons. And if you're interested in being a biologist, that's a lot of what you do. Notice change, notice something out of the ordinary, or be able to take a detailed observation. So we're going to start developing that today. So I said that biodiversity is the variety of life, and one way you can measure that is by counting the number of species in an area. And we call the number of species in an area is called species richness, how rich an area is with species, okay? So what we're going to do is pick a place. So you can go in your yard, in your porch, look at from your kitchen window. Again, if you have a family or friend who has collected a lot of different plants and animals, you could do this in your house. You could take a brief walk while you're doing this, whatever you feel comfortable with. And so the preference is to go outside because I think you'll see more, but I have seen people have jungle houses as well and adopt all of the animals. So you could do that instead. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to your study area and you're going to count as many different species as you can find in 15 minutes. How many different types of life? And I'm actually going to change this to 10 minutes today, just because of air quality and such. So we'll say 10 minutes and we'll put a 5-minute buffer in there for you to have time to find your spot, set a timer for 10 minutes, and then come back and report back. So you're going to count each new type of species that you see. So each different type of tree or plant or animal. If you see a tree and then you see the same tree later, you don't count it again. You already saw it. So we're not counting number of organisms, we're counting number of different types of organisms, okay? And you don't even need to know the name of it. You could write down tree 1, tree 2, bird 1, bird 2. You could write tall tree with roundish leaves, and tree with spiky leaves, and bird with black feathers, or small bird with brown feathers. So you don't need to know what you're looking at. We're just counting different types of life, okay? So you can put descriptors like that that will just help you not count them again. Or maybe you think in 10 minutes, you'll be able to remember which species you saw.
There's actually an app called Google Lens where you could like look up what kind of species it is, I guess, or.
Yeah, there's that. And there's also an app called Seek and an app called iNaturalist that you could use. And I would recommend using that for the second activity I'm going to show you today. But you could do that today, but I also want to make sure you all have time to count as many species as possible versus taking the time to identify them. So I would say if you do your count and you have time left over and you feel like you've covered your area, then you could start doing identification. For today, though, I just want to make sure you can see how many different types of life can you find in 10 minutes, okay? So did you say that's called Google Lens?
Yeah, I don't know how accurate it is though.
Okay.
But it's pretty
So
accurate.
we'll
It's
use,
it's
sorry, go
built
ahead.
into sorry. It's built into Google Pixel phones. I have one, but I think you can also download it on an iPhone.
Okay. So that'll be good for the second activity the one you're gonna do on your own. But for today, let's just count how many different types of life you can find in 10 minutes. And then what you're gonna do is bring your list and total number of species back, and we're gonna share what we saw. And I'd like you to put your data here. So here you're going to put, oh, let me erase. Oh, some of you have, great, you all have a head start. So you're gonna put your name, the time that you did your survey, and how many species you saw, okay? That's all you're putting here. Now for notes, you might put something like smoky or hot, or the lawn was just mowed, or very dry. Anything that you think might relate to why you didn't find very many species. And I'm gonna redo my species count today, so I'll join the team here. So that's what we're going to do first. So does anyone have any questions about this before we get started? Everyone knows what we're doing? Let me do a let's go to let's do under reactions, do a thumbs up if you feel like you know what we're doing. All right. Looks like we're good. So it's 12:22. Let's come back at 12:40. So you've got like 8 extra minutes to go to the bathroom or find your spot and figure out what you want to do, and then set your timer for 10 minutes. So we'll come back at 12:40 and report back what we found. And then I'm just going to go over what we're doing today, or what you're going to do in your own time after this. Okay. All right, I'll see you back at 12:40, and that's it. I'll be here. I'll be in and out for questions if you have them. I'll stick around for questions if you still have a question. So as folks come back, they're entering their species. I went a little crazy because I did my yard and there's a lot of plants there. I've actually planted all of them, and I've never counted them before, so that was a little bit wild. So it looks like we have a variability between 10 species and up to 39 so far. If you counted plants, you probably got higher numbers, and I like that some folks chose to do mostly plants and some folks chose to do animals, and animals passing by. You could do your own dog. I didn't count my dog. I should have done that. So we have quite a range here. We still have Noah and Annual to enter their species, and so they can do that when they come back. And let's see how many folks we have back so far. Looks like we have, okay, folks are starting to join us again. Is Maddie here? Oh, there you are. Okay, great. Okay. So we have a wide range of variability, and and part of this is because we counted different types of things, and part of this is because of where we live and what type of nature is right outside our door. But the cool thing here is that you all now have a little bit more of an idea of how many species are right out your front door, of what the biodiversity is in your area. Trevor, did you count a lot of plants? Trevor just entered his data. I don't know if he can hear me.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, most of them were plants. I have a pretty decently large like backyard garden thing with a lot of different plants and whatnot, as well as out in my front yard with a lot of my neighbors too.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So if you want to, if you all are interested and want to try this study again, I think what I'll do with my afternoon lab is say, just count animals or just count plants, because it does kind of change what you see. So if you counted mostly plants, then you might have gotten a really high number because there's normally a lot of variability. And then some of you counted only animals, so that changes things a little bit. So annual, it looks like he counted flowers and Noah counted different vegetables. Someone saw, Brian, you saw a hawk? I don't know if he's here. So there was a lot of biodiversity. So hopefully you're starting to realize that there's a lot of different species around you, and you may not have recognized that before. So you can keep kind of thinking about this as we look at the next activity. So for that, you will get points for that just based on putting your information in the lab, in the spreadsheet that I just shared with you. And so I'll go ahead and give you all and grade that today, so that'll show up right away. So the second thing that we're going to look at today is what you're going to do on your own. So I'll take us back to Canvas. And describe that, and then you can work on it on your own time. If you want to work on it today, you have enough time today to get it done. If you want to work on it on another day, it's up to you. So for our final part of today's lab, we're going to be doing an observation study. So let me actually take us over to new share. So the concepts I'm about to introduce are going to be on will be what you find on the quiz. So you'll find questions about biodiversity on the quiz, and this will all be in the study guide. And then the concepts I'm about to introduce are things that you'll find in the quiz next week. So the second activity that we're looking at is really all about making observations. And in the world of science, if you're going to do a scientific study, one of the first things you would do is go out and make observations and then ask questions. So you've all heard of the scientific method before. And if you haven't, no big deal, here it is. And so if you wanted to do a study to answer a question, the scientific method is a globally used method for answering questions. And the reason we have this sort of standardized method is really so that we can all kind of have a similar way of doing things, and it allows us to compare information. So if you look at the first two parts of the scientific method, these are really interchangeable, because really the first thing that you want to do is make observations. And next week, the next week's lab is all about scientific inquiry. How do we ask questions? How do we make observations? And your lab kit is going to be really important for next week. So make sure you get that, because we're going to be using things like yeast and sugar and different beverages from around your house to look at some of the different reactions and make observations about that. So I'd like us to start practicing making detailed observations this week. And that's what this next part is all about. So you're going to be, during this activity, going out making observations, and as you do that, you're going to be classifying these different organisms that you study. So the first thing that we do is make observations, like I said. So looking at this flower, you might just say, oh, it's a flower, okay? But what are some detailed observations that we could make about this? So you can put these in the chat, or you could say it out loud. But what are some details, if we're looking really closely at this flower, what are some details that we might notice?
Different. There's a little bit of white and pink.
Yep. So it has two different colors, one color towards the inside, one color towards the outside.
Yeah.
What else?
Side of the flowers, like kind of keep it in place.
Pardon me?
some like a casing that keeps the flower in place.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like an outside curling here that's kind of holding it together. Yeah, absolutely. What else?
It has like a fuzzy branch or like stem. kinda.
Yes. Yes, look at the fur, the fuzziness on the stem here. Really great detailed observation. What else? What would you all say about this is the leaf of this plant. This is a wild carrot. How would you all describe this leaf?
It has pointy leaves.
Yeah, pointy leaves, spiky leaves, branchy leaves. You don't have to be super fancy with your vocabulary. It's really just about noticing details. Any other things that you all notice here?
It's got like reddish purple tips to the leaves.
Oh yeah, good. Very detailed. So look at how they start green here and it goes to purple at the end. Very detailed. What else? Looks like there's a spider web piece right here. Anyone have anything else to add?
Right there is like a bright.
Sorry, I lost you.
There's a center, like I don't know what it, but it's brightly colored.
Yes. For some reason on these flowers, the center flower is a bright dark pink. These flowers are white and then the edges are this pink. Yeah, super cool that this one is this dark pink color. So those are all really good observations, and you all may have just seen this before and said it's a flower. Where really it's one flower made up of many tiny flowers and it has all these really intricate details. So that's what I'm talking about by starting to be more detailed in your observations. Awesome observations, you all. So the first part of the next part of the lab is you're going to be making observations. The second part is you're going to be categorizing those types of life based on how scientists categorize them. So does anyone remember how we categorize things into different groups?
Plants, animals. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. Plants, animals, fungus, things like that. If you remember, we have these little groups here, these huge groups actually. We put, and you're going to learn about this in lecture, but we put things into 3 different domains, which are the eukaryotes, the bacteria, and the archaea. And we are all eukaryotes, which means we have a nucleus. And everything else falls into these areas with no nucleus. And you're going to be learning more about that in your lecture. But what we're going to use to categorize are kingdoms. And you may have remembered this from a previous biology or science class, which is we put things into different kingdoms of life. And all of the ones that you can see with your eyes are either going to be a plant, an animal, or a fungus. Okay? So if you're a plant, some of the things that you might be looking for is it's green, or it uses the sun for energy. Or you might be an animal, which means you need to eat something else in order to get your energy. We call that a consumer. And if you're a fungus, you actually eat dead stuff to get your energy. So you might grow on a dying log or on a dying animal or on poop. So basically you're living off of something that's no longer alive, okay? So you're going to pick an organism, make observations, and then you're going to classify it. Is it a plant, animal, or fungus? What kingdom is it in, okay? The next thing you're going to do is figure out, we're going to skip that part, what type of organism is it based on where it gets its energy, okay? So, Loser?
Something that's dead.
It's
Or
something, something that breaks down something that's dead. Yes. So that's, it gets its energy from something that's no longer alive.
Fungi.
Yeah. Fungus is one example. A worm is a decomposer because it gets its energy from eating dead stuff. Bacteria are decomposers, but again, those you can't really see with your eye. Where does a consumer get its energy from?
The plants.
Plants. What else?
Animals.
Animals. Dead stuff. It's anything that, well, when I say dead stuff, I mean like recently dead, like maybe an animal that's been hunted. So a consumer has to eat something else to get its energy, something else that was alive. And then what is an example of a producer and where does it get its energy?
The sun. Plants.
Yep. So producers, you can think of as it produces energy. So they need nutrients, they need carbon dioxide, but they don't need another organism to make their food. They need to have some kind of nutrient source, they need to have a carbon dioxide source, and they need the sun. And that's something that makes its own energy. Okay, so that's the next thing you're going to do is you're going to classify whether your organism is a decomposer, a consumer, or a producer. There are not a lot of fungus out right now because it's been dry, but if you decide to go to like a redwood forest, there's some redwoods at Bear Creek Redwoods or at Via Montalvo. You might find decomposers like little mushrooms by trees. So that's an option. And the other way that you're going to classify these is if it is a consumer, you're going to classify it by whether it's an herbivore, a carnivore, or an omnivore. So what do herbivores eat?
Plants.
Plants. Yep. So think of herb, grass is a plant, okay? Carnivores eat.
Omnivore is both, right?
Omnivore is both, so they eat plants and animals, and carnivores eat animals. So you can think of carne, meat, so they eat other animals. And then an omnivore, what's an example of something that eats both plants and animals?
A Paleonthosaurus.
Sorry.
I was gonna say human. I don't know if that's true.
Humans are, what else?
Bears.
Raccoons.
Bears, raccoons, absolutely. Fox, your cat. Does your cat eat grass?
He does like to sometimes.
Yeah. and then barf it up?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
Gives us a nice little mess to clean up.
Yep. My cat does that too. It's wonderful.
Why did they do that? Is it?
I don't really.
You know, so cats they clean themselves and they get fur balls and they need to throw them up. They have a hard time digesting fur. And so if they've been cleaning themselves a lot, they need to throw up. And so they'll sometimes actually do that on purpose. They'll go and eat grass. But some cats also like catnip or wheatgrass, and that's more for nutrients. Or catnip actually has a compound in it that's like cocaine. So not all cats respond to it, but some cats are sensitive to it, and so it just kind of makes them feel funny.
Makes them go crazy all night.
Yeah, it does. So it triggers different chemical compounds and kind of gets them high. So that's not really a nutritional need, but they'll also eat wheatgrass sometimes to make up for nutrients. There are some weird cat foods that have blueberries and apples in them and carrots, which I accidentally bought for my cat once, and she would pick them out and leave them all over my house. So cats are true carnivores, but they will, like for what they need, but they will eat plants on the side for different reasons. Okay, so those are the things that you all are going to be classifying things into. So I'll just go over the actual activity for you to do on your own time. And so here is your scientific observation study. So you are going to pick a place again outside, and you're going to pick a few species and actually identify them. And so, like I said, there's this great app called Seek. It's super awesome. You open the app and then you hold it up to a plant or an animal for a few seconds and it will identify it for you. And iNaturalist is the same. And it sounds like you can also use Google Lens based on what one of your classmates said. If you have a Google Pixel, I'll have to see if it's an app. So you're going to try to identify your species. And obviously, I don't expect you all to be, wildlife or plant biologists all of a sudden, but if you are able to kind of narrow it down to what it is, then you'll identify it. You're going to make a list of the species that you see, and then you're going to categorize it as animal, plant, or fungus kingdom. Then you're going to categorize it as a decomposer, a producer, or a consumer. And then you're going to categorize it as a herbivore, carnivore, omnivore if it's a consumer. And here's the most important part. You are going to record detailed observation about each species that you study. So I'm looking for more than it's green, it's brown, those are observations that you can include, but for your detailed observations, I'm looking for more like what you all said with the flower, like you noticed the furry stem or the change in the leaf color from green to purple, or noticing the darker thing in the middle, anything that's more detailed than it's white, it's pink, it's brown. Okay, so we're looking for details here. If you want, you can take a photo, include that. So you're going to do this for 30 minutes. So if you get so into one plant for 30 minutes and you just go crazy, fine. But I would hope that you would do closer to 5 species, something like that. If you just go for it, you might get up to 7. So you're going to do this for half an hour so you can change among different species and practice. Each time you do this, try to get more detailed, okay? You can nerd out on the details of these different forms of life. If you want to do your dog or your cat, maybe you've never looked at your dog super close and noticed how long the whiskers are, or the coloration, how the coloration changes on its tail or something like that. So you can pick different organisms, it's up to you. So towards the end of your 30 minutes, start kind of noticing what you might hear, what smells. So this is just, again, opening your skills of observation. So you're going to record this, and you can write down any questions you might have along the way, just if you'd like. And then you could submit this however you want. You can submit it as a list. You could make a table. You could make a hand-drawn table and take a picture of it. You could make a hand-drawn list and take a picture of it. You could make a digital table like I did here. You could make a digital table like we did up in this Google spreadsheet. You could make Google Slides for each of your species if you want. You could do a Google Doc. You could do a Word document. It's totally up to you what format you want to do this in. Okay? If you want to do a video, you could do a video. So it's up to you. So here's what I put. I found a green fern. It's in the plant kingdom. It's a producer. And then here's some observations that I had about it. It's 3 to 4 inches long. It has feather-like leaves. It's light green. It's furry underneath the leaves. It has small dots under the leaves that might be spores or seeds. They're spores. It has a dark brown stem and dried leaves that curl up, and it grows in shaded areas. So these are all examples of detailed observations. So you're just going to study one species at a time for 30 minutes, okay? Questions about this?
The intro to biology in class biodiversity activity, is it just you just fill out the spreadsheet, you don't actually turn anything in, or?
Right, correct. So if you put your data in the spreadsheet, I'll put your points in today.
Okay.
Any questions about this last lab activity? Okay, so welcome. Next week is scientific inquiry. So we're going to be learning about how to take data and we're going to keep working on observations and questions. And what else was I going to say about that? So that's when you will first need your lab manual. If you cannot get the lab manual in time, just message me. I would say by Monday, and I will send you next week's lab. And the pre-lab you can get off of the biology website, which I can post on our Canvas page. And then I have one, let me stop share here. I have one announcement, which is that we need, I'm helping Dylan get back in right now. Okay, great. Thanks, Noah. So is anyone available to take notes for this class? I'm putting in the chat. We're looking for a note taker for people in this class, and you receive priority registration if you sign up to be a note taker. You can get a letter of acknowledgement for community service, which looks good on when you apply to colleges or jobs. And you also get a gift card. So if you are interested, please let me know and I will hook you up with DESP to take notes for people in our class. So if you're available for that, I will stay after today to answer any questions that you might have about anything related to the class, not related to the class, related to West Valley, any questions you might have about the assignments. And if you want to stick around to let me know if you're willing to be a note taker, then I will connect you with the folks for that. Okay. So it's really nice to meet you all. I hope we have a fun semester. And I'm available, so please reach out if you have any questions. The best place, I didn't say this, please, please, please message me in Canvas because my West Valley email is crazy. I get a lot of emails from West Valley all day, so I really prefer students to contact me in Canvas. All right, so I'm here for questions. Otherwise, have a fabulous week. And I will see you next Wednesday. You will start at 10:55 with the quiz and then come meet us here at 11:20.